we kind of started on this thing in BBS HunaTrainer.com where we're trying to apply Huna. Like what's kind of been going on for like the last, like I'd say probably for nearly 2 years now, is that we've been learning a lot about Huna, and we've been applying bits of it. You know, I'd say what happens is there's so much stuff has come up that it would be hard to. I think it'd be hard to actually apply a lot of it all the time. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. I was probably teaching for 5 years before I actually realized that I wasn't really applying any of it in my own life. So it's more than just knowing the concepts intellectually. It's when it starts to become habit and doing it in your own life that it becomes useful to you personally.
Okay, yeah. When I was talking to you earlier, you were saying you might have some ideas about how to apply the principles and to help you with how to use the principles to help you apply Huna, isn't that right?
Yes, well, any situation in life, any problem, any subject that you want to look at can be resolved or answered or created through the 7 principles. And that really works on the keywords that we use for the principles, and there are some alternative keywords, but for the world is what you think it is. The keyword is be aware. So if we take something that's probably big on most people's minds as prosperity, it's important to be aware of what you think prosperity is for you. You know, how do you define it for you? What does it mean and what does it look like? Once you've got that, a reasonable understanding in your own mind of what it is you actually see as being prosperous, then your subconscious, your coup, has something to work with in terms of finding memories that match that. And if it can't find memories that match that, then we have to create those with our imagination. The next principle, obviously, is there are no limits. So anything's possible. And if you're trying to create $100 in your bank account or $1 million, as far as the universe is concerned, there's no difference. But as far as our coup is concerned, it's maybe too big a stretch for a lot of people. Some people can go from, say, $0 to $1 million and have done it. Many people have done it, but for the average person,
I've got a good story.
The changes.
I've got a good story there. I have a good story there, actually. I started. I trained my coup to find money, and it's finding pennies and kind of 5-cent pieces all the time. But I'm having a hard time trying to get it to find like $10 bills, So for me, I actually have a jar that's like it's full of change now. There's quite a lot of it, because I just notice coins in lots of places where a lot of people probably wouldn't notice them. I just see them all the time now.
Yeah, they're there all the time. It's just that it's become important to your coup. And so you become much more aware of them. It's like a lot of people say they'll buy a new car, and all of a sudden they're noticing that type of car all over the place.
Yeah.
They've always been there, but just because now they own one of those, it's become much more important to coup. So cou's pointing it out to us and making us more consciously aware of those in the environment. And that's one of the things that we can do to train our coup, is to tell it what's important to us in terms of opportunities and situations where we can create what we want in our lives. And it's just magical to see that, and recognizing those things and praising the coup for those types of things, even though they might seem insignificant. Every little thing, you praise your coup, and coup becomes more responsive to bringing these things into our awareness much more quickly. So that's an important key thing of applying Huna, because coup is always working on the principle, what's in it for me? And coup is always wanting to move towards happiness and joy and pleasure.
Okay.
So then it's recognizing, first be aware, then be free to change, acknowledge your freedom to change, and acknowledge that you have the power to change. The next thing is to really become aware of where we focus our attention, because energy flows where attention goes. And to create any sort of change takes focus and energy. So we need to be aware of how we express things, because Are we focused on lack, or are we focused on abundance? Are we focused on the new thing we want to create, or spending more time focused on the fact that we don't have it yet? And very simple things can trip us up. And like if somebody's trying to go on a trip to Hawaii, for instance, they figure out when they want to go and they figure out how much money they want, and then they put their attention on creating the money that they want in order to go, which automatically puts Ku into a state of lack. We don't have this money yet. So instead of focusing on the holiday or the trip and the benefits of going on this trip, people get locked into looking at, oh, how am I going to create the money to make this trip then? So that's needing to be very, very careful about where we place our attention. We forget about the how. We forget about where it's going to come from, because it could come from anywhere. And the trick is just to let go of that and trust, do everything we can physically to bring it about, and then trust that it's going to appear. Just pretty much the same as your story of finding money along different places.
Yeah.
Setting the focus on the goal and the benefits of the goal is telling Ku to look out for the opportunities, and they'll present themselves. But if we get stressed that it hasn't happened yet or whatever, it reduces subconscious ability to bring things to our attention. So it's about staying relaxed and trusting quite a lot. The next thing, obviously, is now is the moment of power, the fourth principle. So the trick there is to be here, be in the present moment, because now is the only time that we can choose where our focus is. Now is the only moment that we can make a different choice or do something different. And remembering, of course, there are no limits. So the past, no matter what it is, it could be terrible or it could be a great past, it doesn't have any influence other than our focus on it in terms of creating the future. If we can create a whole different viewpoint right now, our future can be completely different from all of our past. So it's remembering these things in the moment, saying and giving ourselves encouragement. The fifth principle then is to love is to be happy with. And this is a tricky one sometimes for people to comprehend. So that the key word here is be loving or be happy. The happier you are with the present, the way it is now, the more easy it is for us to change it. And being happy is about letting go of judgments, especially in terms of success and prosperity, because we're always usually comparing ourselves to ideals which are, for the moment, well outside our reach. And we're comparing it with ideals that are really, from the present point in time, really difficult to attain. So we're making the goals too big, too general for subconscious to really focus on specifics.
I remember you saying, I was talking to you online before, and I remember you saying that to be happy is a choice, you said.
Yes, you can choose to be happy no matter what is happening in your environment and in your life and in the world. You can still choose to be happy. And the happier you can be, you tend to have a lot more energy and a lot less stress, and be able to focus more clearly on your goals and your aspirations, and be able to change the present moment much more easily. So it's learning not to compare situations. Just look at a situation and find the best that you can from it without comparing it to something else or judging it as being good or bad. Judgment tends to bring up emotional feelings which can be related with increased stress, and that just reduces our effectiveness in terms of applying Huna day to day. And this is a real growth process. I mean, people get very impatient and expect things to happen really, really quickly, which they can do once we get really well practiced at creating new situations. But until then, we just need to be able to accept the present as best we can, knowing that we have the freedom to change it, and knowing that we are changing it by choosing a more effective focus in the present moment. And this is a habit that we need to get into. Some people do it maybe a couple of times a day. They'll set aside a period where they'll do this, but then they're completely in the opposite focus for the rest of the time, so they're undoing the good work.
Yeah, I'm laughing at that.
Well, I'm speaking from personal experience.
Well, I can relate to that a little, you know. So.
Yeah.
But,
and what happens there is, what happens there is, our current situation, our coup, has become very, very adept at creating that. So it only takes a moment's focus and a little bit of energy for us to create similar situations to what we're used to. But coup has to learn the new patterns that we're creating and the new habits. So it takes a lot more time and focus in order to create those, to replace the old ones. The old ones just vaporize into nothing if we don't put any focus on them. So we can spend an hour focused on creating the new thing that we want, and we'll get some progress, and it'll only take a split second focusing on the old stuff to get the same level of progress. So it really is an endurance thing in some ways, and being able to maintain that new focus as much as possible during the day. And that's an important part of applying Huna. It's a very simple process, but simple things aren't always easy. And depending on how big a goal you've set for yourself, the more time and focus and energy that you're going to have to put into it, and accept that you've got to walk every step of the road. You can't just, like in Second Life, teleport to your goal and have it instantly. It takes time for the universe to bring everything together, to start attracting the right people, to start attracting the right circumstances, in order for it to work for us. And we do tend to get a little bit impatient and decide that
it's not working.
Okay, it's not going to work. I've got to try something else.
Yeah. I know. I saw some good stories there recently about people who were trying very hard to make something happen, and pretty much the second they forgot about doing that, it happened. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, the more we struggle for it and strive for it, the more stress we create, because we haven't got it yet, and stress always reduces effectiveness. So it's a balancing act there. So anyway, so the less we judge what we've got already as being bad or not enough or not really good compared to what it is we really want, the less we compare it and just focus on what we really want, the more quickly we'll move towards that goal, because we're not criticizing ourselves for not having achieved it yet. Now jumping to the sixth principle then, all power comes from within. And the key word here is to be sure, or to be confident. And it comes back to trusting yourself. Be happy with yourself and trust yourself that what you're doing is working, albeit maybe slowly or in ways that aren't always visible to us. And I'm reminded of a story I heard recently. There's an entity that's channeled from the Pleiades called Bashar, and it's like the physical world reflects our inner world, our inner concepts and ideas and belief patterns. And it's like looking in the mirror and saying to the mirror, looking at your image in the mirror, and says, "I'm going to smile when you smile." Now that image in the mirror ain't going to smile until you do. So until the change happens within you, the outer physical reality, our real world, isn't going to change, until we've reinforced and created that change within our beliefs, within our subconscious, within coup.
I love that. I love that story.
Yeah.
So you're looking in the mirror, and you're saying in the mirror, "I won't smile till you will." I think that's great.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do. We go through a little process, a little meditation, and we've got expectation that we're going to be able to look around and see an immediate response from the world. A check arrives in the post, or you find a $10 bill on the ground or something like that, instant. It's not always instant, and it's not always obvious. So it takes a lot of patience, confidence that it's happening, it's working. And the other side of that is to not try and force it. Some systems say, okay, we want this, so we're just going to go and get it and make it work no matter what. But the universe takes time to bring all of the forces and energies and people and situations together and for us to learn how to recognize the opportunities. So that it's that patience and that awareness and that confidence that it is working, and it's just going to take a little bit of time. And then we move on to the seventh principle, which means effectiveness is the measure of truth. And the key word here is to be flexible or to be creative. If you haven't managed to do something yet, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that you haven't figured out the right plan. People don't fail, plans do. So you look at it a couple of different ways. Either your plan's no good. If you're trying to, say, save up for a trip, but you're going out every day buying things impulsively, that's not a good plan for trying to save up for a trip. So you need to change your plan. Simple things like that. And sometimes it's a case of we've got a good plan, but we haven't given it enough time for it to work yet. And it can be something as simple as that. So there's a balance in manifesting these things and applying Huna day to day. And quite often, one of the mistakes that people make is to try and apply it to really big things, which obviously take a while to achieve, and there's no necessarily immediate feedback, but there are small things that we can do to practice and to become confident in the process, is to pick small things, day to day, simple things that you can make small changes here and there and just see a growing pattern in day-to-day life of this actually working in your life, and also recognizing things that happen that you can apply to seeing Huna work in your life, even something like pulling up outside a busy shopping centre and immediately finding a car park or something like that.
Yeah. I'm getting very good at that one. I've had some great experiences with it too.
Yeah, and when we practice on small things like that, and we see this working day to day in our lives, it makes the bigger things much more easy to approach, because you just come into it with a little bit more confidence, and the more confidence you've got, the more effective energy you have. So things tend to work a bit more quickly. The other side of that is applying Huna is that when you start to be able to manage, these large amounts of energy that you start to develop, and you lose your focus, if you focus on something that's negative and something that's destructive perhaps in your life, these things are also going to manifest very powerfully, much more quickly. And when these things do happen, and they do happen to everybody, and I know masters that have come within an hour of dying because they refuse to look at an issue in their life. It's just a question of, okay, I've cocked that one up, I've made a mistake, shift the focus in the moment, say, okay, what do I need to do now to make this right, to fix this up and to get back on track? And I sort of equate it to like driving along the road in a car. We very rarely, when we're driving along the road in the car, are we going in a straight line, even though the road looks completely straight. There's dips and potholes in the road that are going to move us off our straight line, or gusts of wind, or all sorts of things, moments lapse in concentration. But every time that happens and we drift off course, we just bring that back into our path. And we need to do this in our lives as well, in applying Huna. Is that when things look as though we're being dragged away from our goal, or something's getting in the way, and obstacles are a good indicator of how we're going. The more obstacles we're getting when we're trying to achieve a path or a goal, the more successful we're being at actually doing it. These obstacles aren't signs that we're not supposed to attain that goal. They're just our subconscious, our coup, saying, hey, I've got a belief here that doesn't match this present focus, this present goal. What do you want me to do with it? And if we ignore that the first time it comes up, coup will create a bigger, more immediate situation to reflect that belief, to say, hey, I need you to tell me, what do I do with this belief? It doesn't match the focus we've got. And so the more we can communicate and understand coup and tell coup, gives coup instructions, they're easier, the more quickly we pick up these conflicting beliefs, and the more quickly we can change them and put them out of the way. and speed the progress towards our goal.
Okay. I wanted to ask you another quick question. I heard do you like on a day? Do you have any kind of set practice and any? I know that, like what I suppose what I'm trying to find out is there anything that a lot of people who are experienced with Huna do regularly every day that is Huna related?
People that have been using it for a long time and get very good at it don't necessarily do anything specific, although we always have specific rituals that we might have as favourite rituals for achieving specific things. Like if I'm sending someone healing energy, I have a particular image that I like to hold in my mind, or things like that, or a specific little ritual that I might like to do just to build the energy in order to send it. But Huna, from the Kupua tradition, from the shaman traditions of Hawaii, is a very mental thing. And what we practice doing in this day and age, because we live in an urban environment, is to be able to learn to do these things at any moment in any situation, with or without particular tools. In some such situations, a nice little ritual might be inappropriate because of the people or the environment. So we learn how to do these things just within our minds without anyone necessarily being aware. But when you're starting out, it's always good to have a routine, because Ku always loves routine, always loves ritual, and responds very well to it. So any nice little rituals that you can create to help you to focus are always very, very useful. Mainly day to day, I particularly look at rituals or meditations or exercises to reduce stress, just to keep myself as free of stress as possible.
Okay. Okay, that was a lot of fun. It's really.
I hope so.
Oh yeah, it's really good to be able to talk to you. I imagine all the guys are going to be excited back at the BBS, to hear this.
The thing to remember, though, the thing to really remember about Huna is that if it works, it's Huna. Effectiveness is the measure of truth, and everybody's going to come to the table, or have an explanation of the principles that they're comfortable with, and they might be slightly different from somebody else or anybody else. And that's the beauty of Huna, is that everything only means what you choose it to mean. And so if something doesn't sound right to you when it's explained to you, then you can make up your own meaning for it. And the only test of it being true and accurate for you is the fact that it works for you and you feel good with it. But I often get questions like about particular techniques for doing the same thing. And they say, which technique is better? And I said, my answer is always the same. Which one do you like the most?
Yeah.
So it's up to you to pick the techniques and the rituals and things that you like the most, because they're always going to work better for you than something that you've been told works by somebody else, but that you don't really relate to very well.
That's fair enough. I think that I think what attracted me to Huna in the beginning was the last principle. I could see straight away that it made a huge amount of sense to me.
What really appealed to me, because I actually there's two viewpoints that Huna is applied through, and the most common is the warrior viewpoint, and that was the first one that I came into contact with in terms of learning Huna. And I was learning Huna through the Lomi Lomi training, the temple massage. What was an eye-opener for me was when I first came into contact with Aloha International, and learning that there was a different viewpoint. There was an adventurer viewpoint, and I found that viewpoint much more comfortable to use day to day than I did the warrior viewpoint. So that's something to look at as well. The experience of the principles are very different depending on which viewpoint you use.
Okay, that's great. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that just about covers it in terms of applying Huna day to day. But in the Hawaiian culture and in Huna, and because ku always is motivated by fun and joy and happiness, is the most important thing is that any goal that you want to manifest or create or achieve is include the fun factor. How do you make it fun? Because fun is always a motivation for ku, and life's about having fun. It's about enjoying life and being happy and increasing happiness and sharing that happiness around to everyone you meet. So really big thing about Huna is and the Hawaiian culture particularly is having fun. So if you know.
Yeah, I want to see more of that.
Yeah, well, that's what life's about, and the more fun you can make practicing Huna, the better it's going to work for you.
Okay, that's great. I just want to thank you for that. I think the guys know you as Kahu on on the BBS, and I'm sure they're going to be delighted to hear this. And I just want to say thank you on their behalf very much.
Oh, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. The main reason I teach is to learn, and I get a great deal of learning from the questions that I get asked.
Okay, I'm hoping we're going to do this again soon.
Be my pleasure.
Okay, so thank you, Kahu. All right, bye bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aloha.
Aloha.